very jealous that you've been able to treat for pharaoh ants because we teach them down here, but I have yet to see them.
If I didn't have my ace, they probably wouldn't have looked at me. One of the members of the kickboxing academy that I was going to owned his own pest management companies.
Welcome back to the Beyond the Pest podcast. I am Mike Thome, one of your hosts.
And I am Jen Sweeney Ingram, the other one.
Today, the Beyond the Pest podcast goes international, and we get the opportunity to meet with Jeremy Southgate, technical support auditor at Abell Pest Control out of Ontario, Canada. It's a great conversation that we had today about a wide range of topics. I think you guys will get a lot from it, and thanks again for joining us.
Welcome. Here we are in our beautiful studio. We're excited to have you today.
Thanks so much for having me on. I am thrilled to be here. When I got the invite from you, I was just over the moon. We have so many great members in our committee, and I didn't expect to be asked so quickly. So thanks so much for having me.
You've been doing the video that I saw. So you've started out doing tech tips when you go out into the field, take some videos of yourself. It's a really good idea. I think we absolutely should be doing that just so we can get our name out there and not just say we're technical people. A lot of us have been in the field for a long time, but we're still in the field and we see things all the time. And, we have this knowledge. We might as well spread it and share it. So thanks for doing that.
Absolutely. Especially just over the years, we gather so much experience working in different facilities. And, the great thing about my job is working with so many different route managers, and you pick up different things that they have done, whether they picked it up at other companies or in other industries that are similar to ours, and just being able to be like, wow, that's a great idea. And then just take that and just share it and put it out there so it helps other people. So I'm more than happy to do that.
Awesome. So, Jeremy, you mentioned all the years in the industry. Give us the Jeremy Southgate origin story. How did this start? I know you probably grew up wanting to be in pest control, right? Because everybody does. But what's the Jeremy Southgate origin story?
Oh yeah, for sure. So, as much as, I love to say that I grew up loving bugs and other creepy critters, I didn't. Although when I was a kid, I was very fascinated with the pavement ant wars that were going on, and, putting your finger in the middle and they all kind of scatter out from those little spots. But yeah, did not have any sort of interest. And it's an interesting story about how it all came up. So please bear with me. But
We're here for the long haul.
Yeah,
So you can take it as
so
long
many
as you
details.
want. We are your captive audience.
All right. So I guess it started out, I had just graduated university. So I got my honors history from Wilfrid Laurier University. And I had a summer job. So I was saving up money and also doing a lot of volunteering because my goal was I wanted to teach high school history and phys ed. So that was the basically career aspirations that I had. So what happened was at the time when I was just doing this work and volunteering, so I started really getting into fitness and kickboxing and other types of martial arts. So one of the members of the kickboxing academy that I was going to owned his own pest management company. So Steve Peltier is a great friend and mentor of mine. So, and we just kind of knew, what we were doing, but didn't really take any notice. We just, we're going here for kickboxing and that's it. So my summer job was coming to an end. So I was hauling ice. So it's pretty hard to haul ice in Canada in the middle of winter. So I was looking for another job, and my parents suggested, well, why don't you ask Steve? He owns his own company. And I was like, okay, all right, let's I'll ask him. So he brought me down for an interview, and next thing you know, I am a service technician. And
Okay.
from there, I just really fell in love with our industry. I've always felt that pest management is that perfect balance of physicality, but also using your intellect at the same time. And it's just working well. So you're not sitting behind a desk all day, but you're not out, you know, drilling something or throwing a sledgehammer down all day. It's just that perfect combination of, yes, there's physical aspects to our industry, getting up into drop ceilings and crawling underneath that equipment, but figuring out why you're underneath there and what you need to do in order to solve those pest issues that are under there. So I think it was because of that passion that I just really found so many different aspects of it exciting, mostly the insect and the rodent biology.
Mm.
And I don't know, just numbers and facts really stuck with me. And I got excited to be like, oh, like this is how many litters a house mouse can produce. And this is how many eggs a blowfly can lay. I don't know, that was just always fascinating to me. So from there, I kind of just went on my own and started taking different courses. So the Purdue Introduction to Urban Industrial IPM, which is by far one of the best courses I've ever taken. So I highly recommend everybody to take that because you just learn so much. And on a previous episode, Mike, I remember you mentioning that it was a correspondence course.
Yeah.
Thing
To
for
mail
me,
my paperwork in.
yeah, I had to fill out everything and send it in and just, wait patiently for them to send it back. I think I even sent mine expedited just because I wanted the results as quickly as possible. But it was different courses like that that really inspired me to keep going and just, again, encourage that love of our industry and picking up new things and using them out in the field with some success, I would like to think. And
Mm.
it was around year 3 with the company that I worked for when my boss, he actually sent me to the International Bedbug Summit that was held in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
So went to that, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of different things. I think that was the time when I think it was Nia Jenkins was starting to talk about fungal spores and how they could be used for bedbug control. And oh well, okay, that'll be a pipe dream. And now we have apprehends. So that was fantastic to see. But I remember coming back from this conference, and my boss brought me into his office and he sat me down and he's like, you've been working really hard, and I really like what you're doing out in the field. I think it's time for a promotion. It's like, I'm going to make you the lead bedbug technician.
Yes.
Right? But this is, how is this a promotion? This is
Right.
a punishment.
More work.
But I really fell in love with doing bedbug work. Just the challenge of it and finding them and doing the appropriate treatments and being presented with different scenarios where you had to be like, okay, well, I can't use a conventional method. I gotta think outside the box in order to treat this.
Jen,
So
this is I just realized the Beyond the Pest podcast has gone international. I think we did not call that out early enough that we now
Yes.
have an international guest.
It started with a
It
Canadian.
did, right? So
Jeremy,
yeah,
you're from Ontario, right? Are you from
that's correct.
there? Okay, cool. So born and raised.
Yes, yep. So
Cool.
raised in a little community called Chatham, Ontario.
All
No,
right. I've got a friend who lives in Quebec and she skied to work.
nice.
I don't know how y'all do it. So you haven't caved and gone to Florida. You
And
guys actually have a branch office in Florida, right?
yes, that's correct.
And do you have any others in the States?
Yep. So we have our branches in Michigan, Ohio. We have a small presence in Indiana, and then Florida.
Okay, cool. So when did you go to Abel? What was the
Yeah.
progression?
So what happened was ultimately my friend, he ended up selling his company to Rent to Kill.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's kind of how I got incorporated. Yeah.
Nice.
We were coworkers for a short period of time.
Oh,
Yep.
cool.
So it was Rent to Kill, and he sold just before the merger with Stereotech. So then it became Rent to Kill Stereotech. So
Huh.
from there, Abel had reached out to me. So they did a little headhunting, and they had said, hey, we know that you're interested in a quality assurance job. We have a position available. So I was like, all right, sure. I'll interview for it. So, and I think I did pretty well, and that's how I got to Able.
Said, au revoir.
Yeah,
I'm good. That's all you needed to know.
that's right. Yeah,
That's
that's all she wrote.
fascinating.
So, what exactly does the sort of QA technical department look like at Able? What are your responsibilities?
So, Jeremy, you're an auditor specifically.
So, quality assurance auditor or technical support auditor. That's one of the the two options, I guess. But there's a number of things that I do. So first and foremost, I do a lot of quality protection audits. So I will go out to different facilities, whether they're hospitals or food plants, warehouses, distribution centers, and then I will audit their pest control program from our standpoint, but also from the clients, Joe, looking for structural sanitation issues, pest activity, things like that. I'll look at their pest trending data just to help guide them in the directions that they need to prepare for any sort of influx of pest activity. But I'll also do a lot of training for our staff. So we have our orientation training, which is 3 days virtual that I help with. So whether it's on rodents or ants or bed bugs, things like that. So, and I also help with our structural license training for new hires as well. So basically, it's a course just to get them ready to write their license exam, just in Ontario. But it really guides them and just better prepares them for that exam, especially the math portion. I love teaching the
Mhm.
math portion. I don't know
Good for
why I
you.
fell in love with it, but I love doing it. So I just help get them prepared for that, but also do a lot of ride-alongs for the staff too, just to see, what they're up to and if there's anything that I can do to help and support them, but also troubleshootings as well. So I'll go out into the field, and we have great teams that are able to handle these different pest challenges, but it's those few rare ones where the root managers having difficulty, and the branch management will go out there, and they just need that second set of eyes.
Yeah.
So they'll give me a shout, and I'll come out just to offer some different things that they can do in order to eliminate these pest issues. But I'll also do some desktop audits just to see how their paperwork is looking. But I will also review our SOPs, so our standard operating procedures, work instruction manuals, and just see if anything needs to be updated or if there's anything new that we need to create. So
So,
recently, I just finished working on the termite one.
are
And
you overseeing all of the branch offices as far as the quality assurance goes?
Nope. So my region is the Greater Toronto area. So that
Okay.
includes Toronto, Mississauga, a little bit into Barrie. So we're starting to get into Northern Ontario,
Okay.
and then our US branches.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And what is the
But
termite pressure in Canada, in Ontario specifically?
more so, I'd say Southwestern Ontario has a little bit of termite pressure, usually around the Kingsville area. A bit in Toronto, but it's more so for our US teams. Our US teams do a fair amount of termite work.
Gotcha. What are the main pests that you're dealing with in Canada? Is it mostly going to be the bed bugs, roaches, things like that, or more commercial? Or yeah, tell us a little bit about that. Since I'm here in Tennessee, I know
Mhm.
Mike, you live up north, but Yeah, I know. We're just inundated with everything, so I'd love to hear kind of what you're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the great thing about Able is we are coast to coast. So we're all the way, on the West Coast. So British Columbia, all the way to the East. So, Newfoundland. And then, we, obviously down in Florida. So there's just a wide range of pests that we cover. So for my area specifically, I would say rodents would be, the big one. So Norway rats and house mice. German cockroaches, bed bugs. Different areas, we might counter small pockets of American Oriental cockroaches. It's also small flies are a big nuisance. So
Sure.
that would be more so our dark-eyed fruit flies, forward flies, drain flies. So those are the ones that are giving us the most grief. Different ant species. So, like a lot of the northern temperate regions, so like carpenter ants and pavement ants, pharaoh ants. I love treating for pharaoh ants so much. Uh, and then yellow
I'm
jackets and
jealous,
mustard ants.
actually.
Mhm.
I'm very jealous that you've been able to treat for pharaoh ants because we teach them down here, but I have yet to see them.
Oh,
Yeah, when I first got to Tennessee, everyone kept all the texts kept writing, Oriental roach on all of, the pest sightings, and then
mm.
I got them back, they were all Turkestan, so they've
Oh,
completely
yeah.
pretty much been pushed out. I have not seen since I started in '21, I haven't seen one Oriental cockroach.
Mm.
So we don't have Turkestans up by us. We still have plenty of Orientals though. Jeremy, they haven't made it all up by you yet, have they?
In the last 7 years that I've been with Able, I'd say I've had one instance. But that was just in a hospital setting. There was these planters that were having issues, but that's it. Not out, in the exterior, anyways.
What are some of your tips? So I mean, you're the person going out kind of maybe after people have already been there, you're noticing some QA/QC stuff, you wanna kinda just take a look. You send us a video about, an inspection where you're doing for rodents and just kind of a gap that was missed.
Mm.
Um, do you have, like, any advice for other trainers out there, managers, service managers, where they're just trying to teach their techs how to communicate better with, the people at the account, or any tips and tricks or experiences that you've had that might be helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. That actually kind of ties into my article that's going to be released. Just
Ooh.
using different inspection tools, I think, is a huge game changer. And I think there's a lot of technicians out in the field that underutilize these inspection tools because I tell you, when you pull out that fry tool or that inspection mirror or a ruler, whatever the situation calls for something, and you pull that out and you use that, then people really like, wow, like holy smokes, especially because, as you mentioned, that communication piece. When you go out and you're speaking to a client and you say, hey, this opening, it's big enough for mice to get in, and they look down and they're like, uh, it's not that big. I think it's fine. But, you pull out that fry tool or you pull out a ruler and you scale it to a quarter of an inch and stick it right there and show them, or take a picture of it and then show them, then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that is definitely big enough. So, for myself, I like to use a lot of analogies whenever I'm speaking with clients or I'm speaking with technicians as well. So, like, one of the best ones I use a fair amount is like utilizing insecticide dust. So, we always try to say less is best, right? Like, just a small amount of dust, that's really all you need. But, I get it. A lot of people just want to get that big blob of dust in there because they want to know that it's covered. So I just try to explain to them that, well, like if you just put all of that dust in there, just imagine like if you were to walk down a hallway and it was covered with shards of glass and nails, you'd be like, nope. I'm walking the other way. So that's similar to pests when it comes to the dust, right? So you want that nice light coating that's there so they're more likely to walk across it. So, things like that where I'll try to put it in a way. But it's funny you also mentioned the communication piece, speaking with clients. And I feel that I'm starting to get to a point in my career where I can be a little bit more blunt with clients on the realities of pest issues within their accounts.
Right.
Definitely not Corrigan level where he can just say, "Hey, like this is what it is," and just
No,
deal
for
with it.
sure.
But
Yeah. But
but
you've been in it long enough that you're like, been there, seen that. This is a red flag to me.
yeah, exactly. So, and you've seen so many stories where you know what's coming and you almost feel like like from a natural disasters movie, that scientist that runs into the boardroom and they're like, hey,
Mhm.
this big storm's coming, and the advisor was like, oh, okay, sure it is, and next thing you know, the disaster happens. So but I've gone out to different accounts now, and I was at this one location just the other day, and the quality compliance uh person was coming out with me, and wow, like where like all of these spots are, and where these pests could be getting in, like that's great, must have an amazing memory. And I just said, no, it's because I've been coming here so often and these issues aren't getting fixed. It's just I know where everything is every single
Wow.
time, and that kind of like opened their eyes. But I think some room managers, or that's what we call technicians at Able, I think they are a little bit worried that if they say something like that to the clients, then they're just gonna, oh well, we're gonna fire them and move on. So I think there's that fear that if they say something that the client disagrees with, then they're just gonna move on. And a lot of times that's not the case. And there's ways that you can sugarcoat it a little bit, but you need to be, honest and open with them and let them know, hey, this is what it is. And, if there's any disagreement on that, then, at Able, we have a great support network. So, service managers and supervisors and branch managers and QA that can come and help you and give you that guidance and that reinforcement in order to get these issues addressed.
I think that something you just said, I think is important when we're talking to our customers about, hey, I need your help with kind of thing. The show and tell piece of it is so important. It's one thing to sit in a conference room and say, hey, there's a gap under a door, you know what I mean, that a mouse
Sure.
might come in, right? But to physically take them there, use that fry tool. We have so many tools at our disposal that are inexpensive. I mean, like
Mhm.
you can get a boroscope now on Amazon for like $20 that hooks to your phone and works great. We're not talking about spending $300 on some of this stuff. They're relatively inexpensive, but that show and tell piece, you know, goes a long way to saying, hey, this is an underlying cause. Let me show you how. Um, you know, and I think it's an important step for our technicians, for our managers to kind of own that. You know what I mean? And it's okay to show people, hey, this is why you're having a problem, and here's the reason. So
I know.
Yeah.
I tell my techs, the 5 most important words, especially at a commercial account, but any account is, "Hey, can I show you something? Can I show you
Yeah.
something?" And then just take them down to your level, 'cause sometimes I can't tell you the amount of managers that I've had on their hands and knees with me, in a restaurant looking for the source of the small flies, and I forget who it was. I think it was oh gosh, Janet Hurley. She's in Texas. She was the one that told me the word sparkle. So now I use the word sparkle when I'm talking about maggots and
mm.
shining my flashlight. So I
Mhm.
just tell the managers, okay, look for the sparkle with me. And then I'm like, boom, that's where your fruit flies are.
That's it. Or the mine is always, hey, can you help me with something?
Yeah.
It's not so
Oh, yeah.
much like I'm gonna dump this on you, like, hey, I need help from you to get this under control kind of situation. So
Yeah. I
awesome.
mean, and
Mhm.
I tell them too, like my classes, I'm like, I get it. I ask for a raise of hands, like how many people in this room have worked in food service? Like usually half of us raise our hands, and I'm like, I've done it. I can tell you that the last thing I ever wanted to do when leaving a restaurant was to clean the floors properly, stack everything, wash everything thoroughly before leaving, but it's just part of it. So, like, being a good manager in food service is a hard job,
Yeah.
Mhm.
especially today. I mean, you have so many young people working there, and to teach them about sanitation, it's the last thing they want to do.
Mhm. Well, and sometimes it might just be that they may not have been fully educated on just some of the better techniques or things that'll actually make things a little bit easier. It's just,
Mhm.
this is how they were shown many years ago, so they're just passing it down. But one of the big things that I promote whenever I go into food services is like using an industrial squeegee. So, there's a lot of food debris that is along the baseboard. So a lot of times they're trying to get under there with a broom or a mop. They just can't
Right.
reach
Can't
under
even
there.
get it.
So it's like just get a squeegee and just, pull it out and away you go.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever comes to the pest control people and say, "Hey, we're about to build something new. We would like your input on it," right? Because nothing's ever on wheels. I mean, like nothing moves. They have gaps and cracks and crevices that are like man-made, created to accumulate food and provide runways for pests. But nobody ever comes to us and says, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this?" before they do it. It's always like, "Hey, how do you fix it now that it's done?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
it's such a easy thing, but it's so obvious to change from a broom to a squeegee. Like it's something that I'm actually gonna use that, when I'm talking to these people, just changing up simple tools. It's not gonna break the bank if they have to go to a higher up and say, we need this fancy thing. It's just, hey, can you buy me a different broom or whatever
Yeah,
it is?
yeah, exactly.
Cool.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing just as you said, Mike, how we get called in at the end, like once everything has been completed. So again, going back to that client that I was at the other day, and she was mentioning, wow, yeah, more contractors should bring you into the design process so you can point out all of the structural concerns or these issues that might lead to sanitation concerns because they're not sealed properly. So it could allow stagnant water to accumulate, whatever the case may be. And um, yeah, yeah, I agree 100%. So it's almost like for us in our industry, it's like we have to keep speaking those messages and hopefully one day it's that right person will hear that and then they'll almost make it like a nationwide, statewide, province-wide because mandate that, hey, you need to have a professional PCO come in and do an inspection prior to opening up to look for these issues. But that'd be
Yeah.
a great goal to achieve before I retire.
I know it saved them a lot of money in the long run. I
Mhm.
remember, because some of the larger food facilities will have more of a budget to fix some of those things. But in my experience, some of the smaller ones or the ones just getting started, you can tell them, you're in a corrugated metal building. There's so many gaps and cracks all over the place. You've used foam to kind of get some of the gaps, but it's not looking good. And they say it's just not in the budget. Like, what else can we do?
Mhm.
That's so hard because 'cause you're just like, "It's really not" in your words too, there are things you can do right now that are cheap. It's just a matter of the convincing, and sometimes the convincing is the hardest thing, but I find just grabbing them and talking their ear off sometimes to
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm talking them through the right way to fix it.
Yeah.
Too often we
Yeah.
see like just you see customers that expanding foam is like the bane of my existence, right? Like
Yeah.
I am so anti expanding foam because one, like if you just put that in there and you aren't sealing it with some sort of like steel wool or copper mesh or something like that, we know the rodents are going to chew right through that. I see it a bunch like in commercial kitchens, and then all it does is creates little pockets and cavities for moisture and food to sit, and the fix becomes the problem at some point in time. So I think that's where it's super important, when we're having conversations with our contacts is like, okay, this is why I need you to fix it. But I think we're fully qualified to tell them, hey, and this is how you should go about doing it to prevent future issues. There's a difference between a band-aid and a fix. Um, so yeah, I think what we do, I will continue to say it, the education piece of what we do in our role in our companies is probably more paramount than any snap trap that I've ever set or bait application I've ever made. It's sort of the teach a man to fish thing, right? I could come out
Mhm.
and put a bunch of snap traps out for you, or I can teach you the who, what, when, where, why, and you can go on and kind of like you said, Jeremy, before, spread that message.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I reached out to Jeremy, what was it? I don't know. It's probably many months ago, but it feels like yesterday about some of the tools that you use on the job. Just curious about like when you're doing your audits and what you're able to oversee. But can you tell us a little bit about that? I know it's kind of been a work in progress for you, and you've gotten to where you are with a great platform and how you're basically able to catch issues and stay on top of things with customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So with our web portal, it really comes down to the root managers. As long as they're properly recording everything, then you're going to have this amazing heat map and just all this great information that is coming in. So when that is happening and you open it up, it is just amazing to see, and it really helps you out to narrow your inspections and save you time when you're in an account. So, you can actually see that, okay, like 85% of the mice captures are happening in this trap at this door. So
Mhm.
then you go there and you have a look around and, oh yeah, here's this gap that's right at this receiving door. So, when they open up the device and they scan the barcode, they record the pest activity that just goes up into our web portal. So, right now we have a pest matrix. So, and it's fantastic. So when I first started at Able, you would have to create open up an Excel document, and then you would have to sift through all these different areas and, just do a little math to figure out, okay, what's the best area to focus your inspection on because they're getting the most captures, whatever the case may be. Well, now our pest matrix, it does all that for you. So, you just click on that and it shows like the top pest captures within that facility, and then you just click on the chevron and it gives you this great pie chart and shows you, say, 25% of your captures are happening in this specific area. So it's like, wow, that's amazing. And it can go for individual species, or if you want to just group it and say, all right, I'm just looking at all the fly captures. So you just click on all the flies. And then right below that, it shows all the locations within the facility where all of these fly captures are occurring. So,
Yeah, that's cool.
um,
And is that an add-on, service that you provide customers, or is it included in their service?
yeah. So if they're an ESM account, so electronic site management account,
Mhm.
where all the devices are properly barcoded in that, so all of that is included for them.
Cool.
Mhm.
And they can log in on any time. That's awesome.
I want
Yeah.
to ask both of you guys a question. And maybe this is something you guys can help me with. One of the things that I struggle with sometimes when I'm in the field, and kind of Jeremy brought it up the way you collect data, is that, like, to me, these captures, those are data points that should spur us to further action, right? It's not just oh, I caught a mouse,
Right.
or
Mhm.
I found a German cockroach on this insect monitor. Like, how are you guys presenting that to your technicians? Because I think it's something that too often I see. I go out and got an insect monitor full of German cockroaches. Cool, we got German cockroaches, and it gets chucked out. Do you know what I mean? And then replaced with another monitor. Like, Jeremy, you guys have access to all this amazing data now. What are you doing with it? Like, how are you guys implementing that stuff in the field?
Yeah, absolutely. So from myself, whatever I go out and do an audit, then I'll use that information and focus in on the sites. But, I'm also speaking to route managers and I'm just asking them, hey, like, I'm seeing a lot of captures in this area. Like, what's going on? And with the route managers, a lot of times they're really busy. So I know they're doing their own thing, or they'll let me know kind of the background of what's happening. Sometimes they'll go out with me, and we'll be able to go to those different spots. And they'll say, "Yeah, like I'm having a lot of captures in this area, but I'm not too sure what's going on or what I can do." Or they'll be able to give some insights. So then it just comes down to the biology. So if it's age or cockroaches and we're getting a lot of nymphs on that monitor, then I'll say, okay, so, this is where your monitor was, right? So let's expand, but, it's around a, 4 foot radius. That's where we're kind of looking around because they don't move too far from their harbor sites. So, just giving them kind of tidbits of information to help them narrow their inspections and just kind of focus their time and efforts. If it's a house mouse, and sometimes we'll even open up device and we'll see kind of where it ran into that device. So then I'll ask them, okay, like it looks like it's coming from this direction. So where do you think we should be looking? And they'll be like, oh, it looks like it was running this way. So, should we look that way? And I'm like, yeah, like if that's where it was running, let's see. Can we find that entry point where it's moving from, or maybe that nesting site where it's leaving? So that's something that I really promote with the root managers whenever I'm working with them.
Mhm. Yeah, we just had it just reminded me of it back when you were talking about heat maps, and remind me. We just had our local conference for TPCA, Tennessee Pest Control Association, and Karen Vale at Dr. Karen Vale at UTK. She was showing us maps. So it's cool to see it visually of bed bugs in kind of these like elderly homes or high rises, where you could really trace, from white to bright red and how many rooms that these bed bugs were actually located in. Some of them were upwards of the buildings were upwards of 70 to 80% infested. So all of the rooms. Um, just thinking about in your line of work, that would be really neat to see visually for those type of locations.
hmm So for multifamily housing, we have a great system called MUR, so multi-unit reporting. So each individual unit and some of the common areas as well will have barcodes. So it'll go on the inside of that door frame. So they actually have to open up the door
Right.
for you to scan it, and then you record all of that pest activity, your pesticide application, structural sanitation issues within that, and then you can bring that up on the web portal. You'll be able to see like where your hotspots are. And you can even see like on different floors, like, okay, like you're getting a lot of issues on this floor, you know, let's inspect the adjacent units and let's
Mm.
see what's going on. Sometimes you're just speaking with the client, and their friends or their relatives or whatever the case may be, and they're just transferring them back and forth. One of the defining pest management stories that sticks out for me was years ago when I first started doing bed bug work in municipal housing. And it was my partner and I, we knocked on the door. We were there to do a treatment, and the gentleman opens up and we say, hey, we're here to do the treatment. And he's like, okay, give me a second. So he goes back into his unit and he just picks up his sheets that are presumably full of bed bugs. And he just walks out of his unit and walks down the hall and knocks on the door of this other unit and just goes inside. And my partner and I looked at each other and we were like, did that just happen? So,
Wow.
so we had to chase him down and be like, listen, like, you shouldn't be doing that. And, we went into the whole spiel of what he should do with his clothes and all
Yeah,
that.
Go ahead
kicking
and
But
them
put
out.
that unit on the list to be treated, right?
yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's situations like that, right? So you see the pest activity on different floors, and that helps you kind of narrow it in. But once you're there on site, then you can really start to put some of these pieces together and be like, okay, well, that's what's going on because they're boyfriend, girlfriend, or their family members, or, their poker buddies, whatever the case may be. And then, you can really help to eliminate these issues.
I would love to take a course in psychology on why humans get comfortable, living with pests. Be
Mm.
fascinating.
we
I think the human mind can get comfortable with anything, but that is in those situations, it's quite fascinating.
Everybody has different tolerance levels, right?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You have some people that see one and like, nope, burn the house down. You know what I mean? And then you have other people that it's just not a big deal. So that's super interesting.
Yeah.
But it's the same
Yeah.
for us too, for our technicians and for myself. If I see, I don't know, crickets coming into my home, I'm like,
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
But for somebody
Yeah,
else, that's one and done.
yeah,
Burn the house down.
yeah.
So yeah, it makes sense.
I actually, that's one thing I get a lot is a lot of people will ask me, and they find out what I do for a living, and they'll say, "Oh, what's the worst pest that you have to deal with?" My answer hasn't changed in many years. I always say it's people. People are the
Right.
biggest pests. I understand, cockroach biology. I understand rodent biology, why they do what they do. But for human beings, I don't understand
Still
as of
working
yet.
on it.
But Jen, to your point, like that'd be great. I would love to take a course that goes into that and just to help understand the ins and outs of, why that's the case.
I always say that we should at least get an associate's in psychology just by doing this, but for so many years.
Let's say
Mm.
after you deal with your first delusory parasitosis,
Yeah.
like client, then 100% for sure. So Jeremy, the last question that we have asked everybody that's been on the podcast so far is that what was your welcome to the industry moment? That moment where
Mhm.
you're like, oh, I do pest control, right? So what was that? I mean, you've shared some stories with us, about the guy carrying the infested bed sheets on the, but what was that moment where you're like, no, this is what I do now?
Yeah. There's a lot of stories. I would say the one thing that really comes to mind for myself was, uh, we were in this facility retreating for pharaoh ants, and knock on the unit door, and the property manager was behind me, and they were just there to open up the door for me. And they had opened it up, and as soon as the door opened, just this wave of odor comes out, and it hits both of us. And what had happened was the toilet wasn't working in this home, and I felt so bad for this family. The young children, they didn't have anywhere to go, and they would find a spot in the room, and
Oh
that's
no.
where they were going. So for me, I just I had this order, and I was just like, okay, it's one of these things. But the property manager behind me was just gagging, and just I can't, I'm not going in there. And I'm kind of looking at him like,
You got to fix this.
I mean, this is what we do, like let's. So they wouldn't go in, but I went in and found the where the ants were and properly baited and took care of it. But that was kind of I was just like, wow, okay, so these are the environments that we go
Yeah.
into. And I guess it was kind of common for myself, but not everybody can walk into a situation like that. So that's the one that really stands out for me. I mean, there's many others where you're underneath the like a metal racking in a meat facility, and there's German cockroaches all along there. Or I've gone into bed bug units where the one gentleman was actually training property management staff on how to do bed bug treatment. So not using pesticides, but just vacuum steam encasements and that. And we open up the door, and the guy is just pale. So he was anemic because he was just getting eaten alive.
My
And I was just
goodness.
like, all right, it's just another day at the office. So
Let's get rid of these for you.
Yes.
yeah.
I mean,
So
in a lot of cases, pest control, I know we say that we provide human health and animal well-being because we are keeping an eye out and keeping mosquito populations down, tick-borne illnesses, but also going into these homes, if you see something, say something, right? Sometimes we're the only ones that are going into these places, and so it's so good in a way that you saw that and you were able to otherwise that manager wouldn't have gone in there,
hmm
you know?
absolutely. Yeah.
And
And
that's
that's
also where that confidence, the tech confidence to say something maybe to an upper manager if they can't feel confident enough to say, "Hey, this is actually something that needs addressing ASAP yesterday."
mhm. Yeah, well, that's a great point that you bring up. Whether it's just risk to children, risk to elderly or pets or whatever the situation is, and just being able to say something to like their branch management or supervisor, whatever the case may be. I also feel that in our industry there is a lot of pressure from the clients that are putting on us because they're like, oh, don't say anything, because they're worried about, say, a health
Right.
inspector or third party auditor coming in and just being like, oh, like you got cockroaches in here? Well, we're shutting you down. And, I've tried to educate clients and our staff and just say that, no, that's not the case. I've worked with a lot of health inspectors, a lot of third-party agents, and they're not concerned so much that there's pest activity. What they are concerned about is, are you doing something about it or not? If you're not doing something, well, then yeah, you're going to be in a little bit of hot water. But, if we record that activity and then we say, hey, yes, we've got some mouse captures, but, here's a work order saying we're repairing the door. We've performed some snap trap blitzes. We've increased some temporary devices in here. So
Sure.
when you present all of that, then they're like, okay, all right, moving on. But I feel that a lot of technicians are afraid to put something down because they're going to get kicked out of the account. And again, it's about that education. But if they are still anxious about that, then they should definitely bring that to their management and get that support from them so they can go back and again provide that education piece.
Yeah. I think for a lot of these companies that we work for, they've been in business for decades. And so we like to joke at my company that there's nothing we haven't seen before, or at least we've got an answer or a place to start for anything, you know.
Mhm.
Um, cool. So, Jeremy, you have been, I did want to remember to touch upon this. So, you've been working on a rodenticide task force for some time now.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's been talk about different regulations. We hear about things. Always need to keep our ear out from EPA and from other states that are doing things differently with rodent control. If you could, is there like an elevator pitch that you can give us? Some of the things that you've been working with, things that you've been hearing for what pest control technicians can maybe expect, and what we're doing as an industry to work with some of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I really encourage everybody to start looking into is, exclusion work and not just focusing solely on rodenticides out there. So rodenticides are great. They do serve a purpose, but we need to be promoters of public health and integrated pest management. So, we should be looking at different things that we can utilize, whether it's roll band barrier or excluder mesh, the new faucet plates that are coming out, Rodexic. So just different materials and also different techniques in order to exclude rodents from moving inside, but also utilizing different tools. So inspection tools like, inspection mirrors and the fry tools in order to identify those entry points. And that allows them in order to properly fix that. But also what we've seen in some of our accounts where, especially out in British Columbia, where there's a, second generation anticoagulant rodenticide ban out there. So it is allowed in some facilities, but, you have to have a permit. So you have to provide a rodent management plan in order to get approval for that. And it's for essential uses only. But, when we've switched out from the utilizing second gens and putting in, say, first gens, obviously there was an increase in the rodent population. But when we started utilizing snap traps in those stations, we actually saw a decrease in the rodent pressure that's along there. So, a lot of times, we get worried that, oh, this is going to cost a lot of money. And sure, initially it will in order to increase the service frequency to those devices. But eventually you're going to reduce, in a lot of cases, that
Mhm.
rodent pressure that's along there. And then you can, widen that service frequency. So then, you'll be able to kind of get your money back in the sense, or they'll be able to save a little bit of money on there. But it's really about focusing on different methods and always learning and always growing in the industry and looking at different trapping techniques, especially. So I've worked with a lot of different route managers and just explain to them the benefits of securing snap traps to cables or, fixing them to walls where you can see the rub marks of rodents moving up and down the walls and getting them there. That's the main thing to really focus in on there instead of just go to automatically putting down rodenticides. But I would urge everybody for the foreseeable future, in order to keep rodenticides as long as possible, because I do feel that eventually some of these products are going to get phased out over time. Like it's coming, there's things that we're doing in order to keep them on for essential areas, and to just kind of delay the inevitable. But I do think that it is coming for different products. But what we can really do, and this is one thing I promote so much, is follow the label directions. Okay, just making sure they're in those tamper-resistant stations, they're out of reach of children and pets and sensitive individuals. So for our company, what we've done is actually, for residential accounts, we've removed all soft bait from the interior and exterior as well. So just putting in block baits, if we were to utilize rodenticide, and again, in those hidden areas, just to help with translocation. But it's looking at ways to follow the label, but then just go beyond that in order to show, people outside of our industry that we are going above and beyond in order to keep the environment safe, our clients safe, that we're following things, because that's going to look better on us, that we are doing these things in order to make sure that ourselves, our clients, the environment are safe.
Awesome. Yeah, if you really want to clutch your pearls, go onto Amazon and look up rodenticides and just read the reviews. But but I'm so glad you said that, because it starts with exclusion. So for companies like, for example, my company, we've talked about doing it, but we use a third party for the most part. But for companies to at least learn the basics, even if they don't get on ladders or do the bigger stuff, there are small things that you could do to seal smaller holes, or whatever it may be, weep holes. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah, actually, to add on to that, and that's a great point that you bring up, that a lot of times I think companies are nervous about getting into exclusion because they think that you need to be a contractor, or, something of the equivalent in order to do exclusion. A lot of times you really don't. So, you just have some excluder mesh or a proper filler agent and just put it in there, no expansion foam, and then use a proper
Nickel
sealant
Simon.
that goes around there. Yeah. And just, again, just make sure that, there's no gaps around there once you're done. Even door sweeps are fairly easy to install. Sure, you may make a mistake or two the first few installs, but over time, like, you will become very good, and they're pretty standard. So, there's different companies that have great videos on how to install their products. We've made our own videos teaching our staff how to do exclusion work, but I think once they see that guidance and how easy it is, then that is going to encourage them to do it more often.
Awesome. Last question. Are you still kickboxing?
Yes.
Good for you. So
Yeah.
you've done it for how many years now?
Oh, geez. So I took a hiatus when I moved from Ottawa, and, all of that traveling around. But it was a few years ago I got back into it. So I would say it's been, I think I've been doing it for about 10 years now, just with breaks in between. But yeah.
Cool. So, last, any advice, somebody wanting to who that has that gung ho attitude, that wants to get to the next level in their company, or maybe look around at different companies, lucky enough to get headhunted by another one. What's some advice that you have for somebody in the technician level, let's say?
Yes, absolutely. So my biggest, I'd say, piece of advice that I could pass along is, if you can, get as many correspondence courses, or do extra courses as much as you can. So for myself, as I mentioned before, like I had to use my own money to pay for some of these courses. Sometimes the company that I was with, they would pay for them, but not all the time. So a lot of times I would have to do that on my own. And I understand some of these courses are a little pricey, and there's family obligations that might restrict that. But for Purdue, usually you get a year to complete them, and you can pay for a 6-month extension. So that is something that I highly encourage everybody to do. But once you pass that 5 years, definitely get your ACE. Okay? That is the one big thing I highly encourage everybody to do. And a great example for myself was when I applied for my position at Abell. And my boss, told me up front that if I didn't have my ACE, they probably wouldn't have looked at me because, with Able, and I feel a lot of companies, they want to hire within. They want to promote within, and that's completely understandable. But because I had my ACE, that allowed them to be like, okay, like, this guy's serious and he has a commitment. So, the ACE really goes a long way. When companies see that you have that, they're like, okay, they're committed to the industry. They have a strong foundation. They have a fair amount of knowledge under their belt. So we're definitely going to take a look at them. So again, if I didn't have that ACE, then I may not be speaking to you at at this moment. So yeah, that's one thing I highly encourage everybody to get.
Yeah.
That
Thank
ESA
you so
checks in the mail, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Jeremy. It's been a pleasure. Just glad you've been able to hop on today and really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on. This is fantastic.
Cool. We'll see you soon.